Here we are with my old friend, colleague, and Hall of Famer, Steve Flink, who is not only a video, a TV star, but he's also a writer for Ruby Tennis. He just wrote a story that I haven't yet read, but he sent it. So maybe, since he never knows what he's writing and what he's saying, he will contradict himself many times during this broadcast. How are you, Steve?
I'm fine, Ubaldo. I'm glad you've given me that license. So just in case I change anything from what I said in print.
Yeah. So anyway, let's see. I just put the microphone a little louder so they can listen to us better, especially deaf people. And okay, so let's talk about the draw. And well, first of all, the strong favorite, I believe, that you have written, and maybe I'm wrong, that is Novak Djokovic. Is that correct?
Of course. Absolutely correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe that he has also quite a good draw, because even if he has Kevin Anderson in the second round, then Kevin Anderson was a runner-up in Wimbledon some years ago. It doesn't seem to me to be the same Kevin Anderson.
No, you're stealing my words, Ubaldo. You did read the piece. You read it.
No,
you're just not admitting it. No, actually, I did say that in the piece. That Kevin Anderson that took Djokovic to 5 sets on court 1 in 2015 when Djokovic came back and beat him, and the Kevin Anderson who played Djokovic in the 2018 final, it's not the same guy. He's struggling. He came back from injuries. He's had to go through qualifyings. He's really had a hard time, understandably. But I think the worst that could happen to Djokovic in that match is a four-setter. Maybe Anderson steals a set in a tiebreak along the way, but that's about the best he could do.
Yeah. So at the end, I mean, if he cannot lose to Draper, even if Draper is not a bad player, because I saw Draper beating Sinner recently, but I don't think he's experienced enough to cause troubles to Djokovic, if Djokovic is Djokovic, unless Djokovic plays much below par. Then I don't see who can beat Djokovic before the fourth round or even the quarters of finals. I mean, to be honest, I don't see Davidovich or Garin or Martinez or Monfils. And not even probably neither Schwarzman, Sinner, or Rublev, who are.
No, I agree. And Rublev, of course, would be the quarterfinal. So it seems to me that I would even go a step further than what you said and say he has a very clear path to the semifinals at the very least. But I don't think he's going to stop there, Ubaldo. I think I agree. The draw, and we felt the same way in Paris. The one thing we didn't know was Musetti was going to be so good against him. But this draw looks very favorable to me for Djokovic, for sure.
Yeah. Also, because to be honest, if Djokovic has to play in the semifinals versus, and we are going farther and farther up, but if he has to play in semifinals after beating, let's say, one of the three, Schwarzman, Sinner, or Rublev, and has to play Tsitsipas, who never performed particularly well on grass, or Bautista Agut, who was in the semifinal. Well, Bautista Agut is a player that sometimes has caused troubles to Djokovic.
He has. You're right, Ubaldo. But right now, he just come off a loss to Sam Querrey. He's not playing that well. I don't trust him as much right now the way we saw him a couple of years ago. So I just think, he's not likely to be as much of a burden this year as he has been in the past. You're right, because he drives Djokovic a little nuts at times because he gets so many balls back. The rallies are so long, it's hard for Djokovic to end them. But I'm not sure he's even going to have to play Bautista Agut, Ubaldo. I kind of doubt that he will.
Yeah, and so in 2 minutes, we have already decided who is a finalist of the tournament. We have almost explored.
Yeah, let's just make this projection though, and I did this in my piece. I do have him Djokovic playing Tsitsipas, as you just alluded to. I do think that Tsitsipas will get to that semi. Not easily. He'll have some tough matches. Even Tiafoe in the first round might give him somewhat of a tough time. And he's not well prepared for Wimbledon necessarily with no grass court matches. But I do think he's eager and he's going to make improvements in his grass court game this year, and he'll get to that semi. But I still don't see him beating Djokovic in that semifinal on the grass. Do you?
No, I don't. And then I would be curious to see, because there are some grass court players on that area where Tsitsipas is. You mentioned Tiafoe, but there is also Daniel Evans, who was born, let's say, in grass.
Right. Yep.
There is Feliciano Lopez, who is getting older, but
and Ubaldo, and of course Lopez is going to play Dan Evans. That's going to be a great first round match, right?
Sure,
tough call. But the other one, Ubaldo, is Shapovalov, is down that part of the draw. He could potentially meet Tsitsipas and have a chance to get to the semis. He's dangerous always, but obviously we've yet to see him string together that many good matches in these majors to make that, it's a tough run to the semifinals for him.
Yeah, well, Shapovalov should go through Bautista Agut.
Yes.
And Bautista Agut first, before he has Opelka, that if Opelka has a good day on his serve, he can beat anyone. So
yes, absolutely. No, that'd be a tough one. That'd be a very tough one.
And then I again in the same area of Daniel Evans and Lopez, there is the Australian De Minaur, who is playing the final versus Sonego in Eastbourne. So it shows that in grass he can play.
Yeah, what are you saying? If he beats Sonego, he wins Wimbledon, right?
Well, if he beats Sonego, you cannot underestimate him.
No, I agree. No, but Ubaldo, to get back to De Minaur, he has to play first round of Wimbledon against this young American that I'm very high on, who's the son of Peter Korda, Sebastian Korda.
Yeah.
And Korda, I think, is very dangerous. That's going to be I talked about that in my preview. It's a very close match. I actually think Korda might win that. I think he's. I
don't know Korda on grass. I have no idea how Korda can play on grass.
Well, he lost to Humbert in the last tournament. He played well. It was a tight 3-set match, and he had a couple of good wins before that. He looked pretty good to me on the grass, actually. So, I have faith in him. I think he's going to play very well. That's one of the more interesting first round matches to me. Is that one with Korda?
Yeah, I think talking about first round match. The most interesting maybe it's Medvedev Struff, because Struff can beat Medvedev.
Well, he just did. He just did, of course, in Germany. But I think that actually will help Medvedev in a strange way. I think this time he's ready. He's on his guard, and he's now, as we talk, is in the finals this week, and that's helped his confidence to come out of a disappointing loss to Struff, and then he comes back now. And is in the finals at the very least. As we talk, he's supposed to play Sam Querrey. So I think Medvedev will turn the tables on Struff, don't you?
Yeah, well, of course, it's possible. I mean, Medvedev, I really never know exactly what to expect, because this year he was talking like if he didn't like clay, and then he played very well on clay too. Then he said, "Oh, grass is not my favorite surface," and then he's showing that he can play on grass too. So, if he trusts himself, that is the first step. I mean, you cannot win a match if as soon as something goes wrong, you get depressed. I mean, he's
competing well. I think he's competing well right now. He's looked pretty good to me in this week before Wimbledon. He's looking strong and improving his form. But that will be an interesting match. Of course, we mustn't leave out the other one. I don't know if you want to go to the other half of the draw, but there's a man named Mr. Kyrgios. I think you've heard of him. Nick Kyrgios.
Yes, sure. I heard of him. And Kyrgios, where is he? Because
he's playing in the bottom half of the draw, Ubaldo, against Humbert, who, of course, has just come off winning a title. Humbert seated number 21. That'll be very interesting to see how he can handle the left-handed serve of Humbert, because I don't think we're going to see many service breaks in that match. I think Humbert and Kyrgios will have 2 or 3 tie breaks at least.
Yeah, and then they may go farther. The winner may go farther than Aliassim, or and get to Zverev maybe.
Yeah, could be. I do think that Humbert, I think he will get, I'm predicting that Humbert will be the one that will get to Zverev, but this time lose. He just beat him in their recent grass court meet. He just beat him last week, but I think right now Zverev in a Grand Slam tournament will probably get some revenge, but in a long, tough match.
Yeah, well, I would like to understand from you if you share the same enthusiasm the Italians share with Mr. Berrettini, who just won the Queens.
Well, Ubaldo, that's you call that a loaded question. Loaded. Because if I don't tell you that I share the enthusiasm, then you never will invite me back on the program. I'm gone.
Which is
right?
true, which is true.
No, I have a lot of enthusiasm, but you know what my feeling is, Ubaldo? I think he's going to have a very good tournament. I think he's going to beat Isner in the 3rd round, which is a tough match. I think he's going, and I think he'll survive it and he'll get to the quarterfinals. But my guess, my hunch now is that Zverev beats him in the quarterfinals in a very good match. It could go either way. It wouldn't shock me if Berrettini won that match, but I'm going with Zverev. You are not, I don't think.
No, well, to be honest, I say that once Nadal was out of Wimbledon and Thiem was out of Wimbledon, and Thiem was anyway not a great grass court player, I thought that out of the top 4 players, I would have loved that Berrettini was not in the same quarter of Djokovic and in the same quarter of Zverev. I would have preferred Berrettini to be in the same section of Tsitsipas, in the same section of Medvedev and Federer, to be honest.
Yeah, right. I understand that. I can easily see why you would feel that way. However, yeah. I don't think I just think it's a slight edge to Zverev against Berrettini, not a huge edge. And they had a good final in Madrid, and he lost, he took a set off of Zverev, and it was a good match. So but I do think that Zverev on the grass might be just slightly better. It'll be they're 2 great servers. I mean, 2 of the best first serves in the game for sure. We don't know how well Zverev's second serve will hold up, but we know his first serve is awfully hard to return. And Berrettini may be the most improved server in the men's game this year, in my opinion. The way he's come on, it's awfully hard to break him.
Yes, well, he usually, when he puts the first serve in, he makes 9 points out of 10.
Well, that right, and that shows you what a great server is. Those numbers, when you're getting up in that territory, getting in the high 70s is good, low 80s is very good, 90 is remarkable.
Yeah, and then but the return, I mean, Zverev, yeah. When you compare the 2 backhands, the one of Berrettini and the one of Zverev, there is a huge difference.
There is
in favor of the German player. So
well, but Ubaldo, that comes into play when the point starts. That's the way I look at that. I don't know whether Zverev's backhand return will be necessarily that difficult to deal with. I think though that when the rally starts and he can go backhand to backhand with Berrettini, then I think he has a clear edge.
Yeah. Let's say that Berrettini in a way moves better when he has the initiative. Zverev is good in movements also when he's defending, because they both are very tall, but they both move pretty quick, pretty fast to be tall.
They do, absolutely. And I thought actually that you touched on an important point, because I think in that last match they played on the clay, that it was Zverev's defense that in the end made the biggest difference in that match.
Yeah. So anyway, I was hoping that Isner was not in the road of Berrettini, because, Isner also maybe is getting older. And but if he has a good day on the serve, I mean, it's tough for everyone. I mean, and Berrettini's weakest point is the return.
Right, I agree. saw in Paris, even on the clay, how devastatingly potent that Isner serve is, and he had Tsitsipas very worried for nearly 2 sets. He won the first set and stayed with him a long time in the second. It got finally he lost the second set, and that's when it turned. My feeling, Ubaldo, is that right now in Isner, I think in a best of 5, he needs to sort of run away with it. I think if Berrettini wins, splits the first 2 sets, just splits, I like his chances to win the match a lot. I think it's very important for Isner to not only win the first set, but the first 2 sets. That's my feeling about him these days, best of 5. He doesn't tend to hold up as well. I think he loses something in his legs. That's what I've seen in the last few years.
Yes, I would be surprised to see another 5th match ending 12 all and final tiebreaker like in 2019 between Djokovic and Federer. But if it would happen, this is probably the match which has more chances to happen. I mean, if you have to pick one match where they could go to the 5th set, 12 each, that is Berrettini's. And then, of course,
then it's a coin flip. You're right. But for Isner to get it that far, that's in essence, he's playing 6 sets and not 5 if it goes to 12 all in the 5th. That's a lot of tennis. And I don't know if he's still up to that. I may be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I like Isner a lot, but I think that there's a big physical edge to me for Berrettini, the match going longer.
Yeah, but for sure they will not go to 70 to 68. That's already shocking.
Yeah. That was Isner Mahut. We're not going to see that again, and thankfully, because we shouldn't see it again. And of course, it was a very refreshing. You alluded to Djokovic and Federer 2 years ago in the final, and I thought that was such a great thing to see, to have a Wimbledon final go down to a final set tiebreak in the 5th. And of course they waited until 12 all. So I think that we'll see it a few times this year. It'll happen a couple of times, I would suspect, at this year's tournament.
I don't know, because you really have to find 2 players who have really great serve to get there, and or such a great quality in returning, like Mr. Federer, like Mr. Djokovic, were able to show, because I mean they are 2 phenomenal, no?
It's true. I mean, listen, I'm not saying a lot of matches. I'm not saying there'll be that many matches, but I think there'll be some. There'll be a few. You have to excuse my dog is barking. I apologize.
Because he disagree with you, for sure. Listen, okay, Berrettini anyway, as his first round versus Peja, who was twice, was in the quarters of finals in Wimbledon 2019, and in that event he had beaten both Anderson and Raonic, 2 former runner-up at Wimbledon's finals, but also Peja, like we were talking before about Anderson, doesn't look to be in the same kind of form of shape, so.
No, I agree. He's not exactly. It's a good comparison to Anderson, and I think it's a very similar situation where maybe he's not quite as menacing, not as threatening as he was then. He's tricky player, but I think that Berrettini.
We have been interrupted by a phone call, or have you got a call?
No, we're fine. We're fine. Berrettini, I think he can handle it, Ubaldo. You get a service break here and there, not many, but also I don't see Peja breaking Berrettini more than once or twice either.
Listen, for sure that most of our listeners right now, they're furious at us because they say these 2 old journalists are talking about everybody and they don't say anything about Mr. Roger Federer. Are they crazy? Do they dislike us? I mean, because that Federer's fans are, they are very concerned about what Roger Federer could do,
Can you tell me a little bit about? I don't know if I've ever heard of him. I'm not sure.
I think he must have won 1 or 2 Wimbledon, or a little more.
No, let's talk about Federer. You know, he's in the same quarter of the draw as Medvedev. If everything goes according to plan, they meet in the quarterfinals. Federer has, all things considered, a pretty reasonable draw, starting with Manarino, who he's never lost to in 6 matches and beaten him a couple of times at Wimbledon. So he should be.
Once it was a very close match. I remember there was one match where Manarino was dangerous for Federer, and Manarino is you know, a player that on grass can play pretty well, and of course it all depends on Federer. If Federer is the close to his level is one thing. If he's not, is a different thing.
Yeah, exactly. We don't know. That's the thing about Federer right now, is that we saw some encouragement in Roland Garros because he won 3 rounds. Then he didn't trust his body, his knee, and so he didn't play against Berrettini, which would have been an interesting match and an interesting test.
Yeah.
So he withdrew from the tournament, but that was some encouragement. But then the way that he lost to Felix Auger-Aliassime, the young Canadian, in Halle was a little disappointing, Ubaldo. They split the first 2 sets, Federer winning the first, and the next thing you knew, Federer was down 4-11 the third, and he was very down on himself. And he commented on it afterwards. He wasn't happy about the way he performed in that 3rd set. Now, I'm not saying that's going to linger necessarily, but I think he could have used some more wins in that tournament. He doesn't know what to expect from himself right now.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting that this time against Manarino, probably 4-set win for Federer. I see him dropping a set along the way, given everything that he's been through.
And then he would have to play Gasquet probably more than Sugita, I guess. Maybe the most dangerous player could be Cameron Norrie. Because he's left-hander. He plays well on grass. He showed it in Queens. And then for let's say for an exception, also some people will support his opponent, because normally when Federer plays in Wimbledon, there are 10 spectators who are supporting the opponent.
Absolutely. Wimbledon and everywhere, but especially Wimbledon is probably where he's revered the most for many, many reasons. But yeah, I agree. The crowds will lift him. I do agree that Norrie can test him. And again, I think probably 4 sets, but I don't think he has quite enough firepower to beat Federer. I don't think he can stretch that over best of 5 and actually beat him, but he can make it somewhat close.
You know, Steve, to interrupt you, when we say you cannot stretch him to best of 5, we don't know how Federer can play 5 sets. I mean, the Federer, even in those last years before his injuries, when he was playing after 2 hours and a half, 3 hours, he was going down a little bit in his even if, of course, in the final versus Djokovic 2019, they played 4 hours and 50 minutes or something, you know?
Exactly. I mean, and he goes all the way into a 5th set tiebreaker, 12-all in the 5th. He serves for the match at 8-7 with 2 match points. So that was pretty remarkable. And then I remember thinking the same thing. I thought physically, even 5 years earlier, when they had a 5-set final in 2014 that Djokovic won, that was about 4 hours. You just wondered in that last half hour how it was Federer fading physically. It didn't look that way to me. He got nervous at the end and he lost, but he does have remarkable powers of resilience. But where you're right is because of coming off the knee surgeries, right now he has these little inner doubts, and he's been pretty honest about it in his press conferences about you think about the knee. You're not sure how much punishment it can take. So, and he had 2 knee surgeries. So he's wondering about himself as much as we are wondering about him. That's my feeling.
Yes, and then you know, on grass especially, you need to bend your knees more than any other surface.
True.
Because
true.
The lower you stay, the lower your body, you put up your body down, the better. because you know the okay, the grass is not anymore the grass we used to see in the 90s when Sampras was dominating Wimbledon and the tournament, but still it's much better to play bending a lot your knees than stay in a erect position.
Yeah, absolutely. Now he was concerned about his knees on the clay, so you have to wonder. You know, you would think it wouldn't be as much of a strain on the dirt as it is on the grass. So
Yeah.
we'll find out about that too. But let's just play it out a little bit, Ubaldo. You still see him. We agree he beats Manarino. I assume, and he'll beat Gasquet, and I still think he'll beat Nori, don't you?
Yeah, okay.
All right. So now he's in the fourth round, and then he might be playing an Italian in the fourth round.
Yeah, I believe that Sonego has good chances because
Yeah.
Sonego, uh, unless he gets there too tired, because he's going to play while I'm talking now with you. This broadcast will go probably after the final played in Istanbul by Sonego and De Minaur, but whatever it happens there. I mean, I don't know yet who is playing, which half of the draw is playing first on Monday. And
Well,
so,
I would think it would be most likely the Djokovic half, right, Ubaldo? Because they do like to let the defending champion have the first match, 1 o'clock match center court. Right?
yeah,
I'm guessing it would be the Djokovic half.
yeah. Well, yes, to keep the tradition, probably
Right.
you're right. And
Yeah.
so they may play the first half, which means that Sonego eventually would have one extra day of rest, which would be fair in also because okay, not only the final in Eastbourne is played on Saturday, but if he doesn't have to play before Tuesday, he has enough time that he doesn't have to fly from one place to another. So Sonego is for sure favorite versus Sousa, and then also the Galan, Doria, and I mean there is Query, Carreno Busta, who could have been a surprise maybe 2-3 years ago. Now Query, I don't know how good this still is, and Carreno Busta, you know, like all Spaniards, doesn't love grass particularly.
Well, Query's coming off is having a very good week now. He's in the finals at the very least. So I think this week is giving him confidence, and he's dangerous on grass. We've seen it at Wimbledon before. We know what he can do, and he's got a great serve and a big forehand, and he seems to have some renewed vigor right now. So I think he may have quite a good tournament, Sam. It looks that way to me based on the recent form.
Yeah, well, Query was the guy who destroyed the chances of Novak Djokovic to make the Grand Slam in 2016, because Djokovic had finally won Roland Garros and he had won the Australian Open. He was hoping to win also Wimbledon, and in the third round he met Query and he got beaten.
Yep, he did. 4 setters. That was a shocker at the
time. But that is 5 years ago, eh?
Yeah, 5 years ago. But he's playing pretty well right now. Maybe not quite as well as he was at that time. But let's just play the Federer tournament out. We will call this the Federer tournament because we're examining him.
Yeah.
We now have him. Do we have him beating? I still say he beats Sonego.
Yeah, me too. I would be happy already to have Sonego in the last 16 to have Sonego in the fourth round would be already a very good result for him. Then I would see him, you know, if Federer goes farther on in the tournament, then he becomes dangerous for anyone.
He does, but then we also, it's not, I don't think it's like normal times where he never doubted his body, and he felt the deeper he went into the tournament, the better chance he had, and people were fearing him. It'll depend, I guess, on how convincing he is in the first 4 rounds. But in my piece, I predicted Medvedev to beat him in 5 sets in the quarterfinals. Now we don't know for sure Medvedev gets there. You already pointed out the we talked right away about him playing Struff in the first round. He might have to play
Cilic.
What's that?
He may have to play Cilic.
Yes, Cilic in the third round. That's third round. And then the fourth round, we don't know. It could be Musetti. It could be Hurkacz. There's a number of possibilities. None of these matches will be easy, but I guess I'm giving Medvedev the edge in all of them to come out for that quarterfinal against Federer. Let's just imagine that they do play. How do you see that match? If it is Medvedev versus...
In that case, I would disagree with you.
Okay.
I would think that Federer would beat also Medvedev. The problem for Federer is to get there, in my opinion. But
yeah, but let's get him. We have him there. We have him there. We've already covered this. So what I'm saying,
then once Federer is there, I think he would beat also Medvedev. In my opinion, Federer may suffer more. A player like Cilic maybe, because Cilic, who is not the same Cilic who won the US Open, but on grass has always been dangerous, because on the first two strokes, serve and return, is pretty dangerous.
Yeah,
and then he is powerful. Medvedev has, in my opinion, too wide open forehand movement. I mean, he has to, do such a long gesture that, in my opinion, doesn't have the time. Then we'll see.
Well,
but let's say that Federer, for instance, plays his favorite backhand, slice backhand with the ball that doesn't bounce much on grass. When he returns from the left corner, from the left side, and he plays that backhand, controlling the slice backhand, and the ball doesn't jump up. Well, in that case, I see Medvedev in troubles.
Interesting. I mean, I don't dispute any of your points, but I think he's going to stand way back like he usually does. He's going to make a lot of returns. Then the question is Federer willing to try to serve and volley some enough to keep him honest and make him worry? Because I think Medvedev is capable of getting a lot of returns back into play and getting them back pretty deep, and then moving in closer to the baseline. And I think he can have some success with that. I also think if he's having a good serving day, that Federer will have some problems there on the return as well. That's why I predicted 5 sets in the end and gave it to Medvedev. I just think right now, given the fact that he's 2 in the world and that he is so motivated, and that he would feel like it was the right time to play Federer. We'll find out, because again, he's not looking at Federer the way he might have 2 years ago.
That's true. For sure, if the rally goes longer and you play more than 5 exchange, then Medvedev will be the favorite. But I guess that Federer will try to shorten those rallies. Sometimes serving and volley, sometimes playing a drop shot, sometimes play a cross court with no bounce, almost with his slice backhand. That is something. Anyway, would be an interesting match, and I would be happy to see it. And
now, Ubaldo, let's look at the 2 scenarios now, because you and I have a nice. We disagree on that outcome, which is great. Let's now look at Medvedev versus Zerev and Federer versus Zverev.
Well, I would see probably Zverev going through. I think Zverev would beat both Medvedev and Federer.
Well, on
he has already done it.
Yeah, I agree. On that, we agree. We agree. I'm just expecting that it would be Medvedev to play Zverev, but if it is Federer, I agree. I still like Zverev's chances to win that match right now, given where he is and coming so close to winning the US Open and being 1 set away from the French Open final before Tsitsipas beat him there. So I think he's starting to believe in himself on these big occasions, and I think he's not afraid of Roger Zverev. I think that
No.
at all.
Zverev is not afraid of anybody but
Right,
himself when he's serving the second serve.
right.
That if that starts to happen, then he is in troubles.
Yes, but I
Because
hear Ubaldo.
his toss is so
Yeah,
tall, so high,
yeah.
that if he starts getting in troubles with that, then he may, I mean, at this level, when you start losing just one game, that could be one set.
Yeah, you're right. But I do think that I've been somewhat encouraged by this year, that I feel like Zverev has the second serve a little bit more under control. And it's not always, he's not going as much to the extremes of something maybe 85 miles an hour, or the next one is 135 miles an hour. He's getting enough spin, and I think there's more control he has over the second serve, fewer double faults for the most part. So, and that's going to be critical, because he can't be serving a lot of double faults against either Roger Federer or against Medvedev, either one. And he needs a high first serve percentage. I do think his first serve is, nobody talks enough about how great his first serve is.
Yeah, so we both expect at the end of our look at the men's draw that the most probable final will be Djokovic-Zverev.
And you will see that once again in my preview. I do have that. And here's the way I call it, Ubaldo. I did call it for Djokovic and Zverev. I see them splitting the first two sets very tight. They go to a third set tiebreak. Djokovic wins the tiebreak and then picks up momentum and closes them out in 4 sets. That's my.
Does he need to go to the toilet after a while or not?
I can't predict that. No, but seriously,
when he goes to the toilet, he comes back, he's another player. I mean, Tsitsipas said it, Berrettini said it, Musetti said it. They all say, "Oh, this is another Djokovic." So, I mean, I would suggest.
Ubaldo, do you remember? You remember the television show and the movie that we had over here, Superman?
Yeah.
And the character Clark Kent?
Yes.
Well, Djokovic
he was going to change the. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. He leaves the court as Clark Kent and he comes back as Superman.
Oh, yeah. And Clark Kent, I was just reading today an old story in the encyclopedia of Bud Collins, because I wanted to get prepared for an interview I had to do on the tennis in the 60s, and with the Serbian TV, which came to my home to interview me, and and I'd read about Clark Grebner, who was called the Clark Kent of the tennis, because he looked like very much to Superman.
Yeah, and what was funny about Clark Grebner, Ubaldo, is that he had the glasses. So for a long time he wore those glasses, and then when Grebner lost to Tony Roach in the quarterfinals of Wimbledon in '69 on the old court 1 after having 2 or 3 match points, he was so upset because it was missing.
Come on, Steve. I am disappointed. You don't know if there were 2 or 3 match points. I mean, come on. You're getting old. You're getting old.
But he had originally had 2 sets to love, and then he eventually lost it in the 5th after the match points, and he was very upset. It was playing in the drizzle, and his glasses were fogging up, so he got rid of the glasses by the next year. And that's when everybody started saying, he's not Clark Kent. It's not Clark Kent Grebner anymore. It's Superman.
Anyway, you see, I like to talk with you because whatever name I mention, you have an anecdote or a story that some people may think that we are not saying unbelievable, unexpected comments, but then we both have let's say, this memory about players and facts that I even noticed, today during the interview, they were sometimes mentioning a player that maybe not many people would have known what to say. And I was happy that I could say it. And
well, although we should tell the viewers, though, that Grebner was the #2 player in the U.S. in '68 when the Americans won the Davis Cup, played behind Arthur Ashe. And then in '68, he was in the semifinals of Wimbledon and the U.S. Open and top 10 in the world. He was a very fine player, just so they know that of his stature.
Sure, sure. And there wasn't that famous book written about Arthur Ashe and Clark Grebner, two different subjects, written by McAfee or something like that.
John McPhee. John McPhee, who wrote for the New Yorker, was called Levels of the Game. It was a great book because he sat down with both players, Ubaldo, after the tournament and had them go back over the tapes and tell him what was going through their mind during the whole match. And then he told you the story of their lives as well, the background, the families, where they grew up. It was a very excellent book.
Yes, one of the best book ever written on tennis. And I met a few years ago a young student from the north of Italy who was doing a thesis to graduate on that book. She had to, because there were so many different aspects, the black background of Arthur Ashe, the white wasp, I don't know if you can call it like that, of Clark Grebner. I mean, they were, and they were so different, but at the same time so estimating each other, no? And
it was fascinating because Graebner and Ashe knew each other so well, and they played on Davis Cup together. But Graebner would go. He found it very exasperating to play against Ashe because Arthur went for so many winners. He was such an explosive, as you remember, a very adventuresome player. And Clark was Graebner was more percentage oriented, and he measured every shot, and so it used to just leave him shaking his head. And he had a lot of trouble beating Ashe, and he, of course, did lose to him in the match they played that was the subject of the book. But Ubaldo, let's go back, if we can, to Djokovic and Zverev, the final that we're both projecting. I've called it in 4 sets for Djokovic after they split the first 2, with Djokovic winning a 3rd set tiebreak and coming home to win it in 4. What is your projection?
Well, I think, first of all, that Djokovic will get to the final without much efforts. So he will arrive fresh. While Zverev, especially if he has, first beaten Berrettini, will give him probably some troubles. Then he has to maybe play a very tough match mentally if he has to play Federer, because still, I mean, for any player to play Federer is a stress, in Wimbledon, in his garden, and so that for sure is Zverev will arrive to the final already with a lot of energy spent on court, while Djokovic will be flying.
Yeah, but the thing is, just to add to your point, even if he doesn't play Federer, and instead he's playing, he has to play Medvedev. That's also not easy. That's not going to be a walk in the park for him. It's going to be a tough match, right? So either way, physically he could be a little drained. You're right, but I don't base it just on physical. I just think Djokovic, on the big points, it makes me think of the 4-set match that Zverev played against Djokovic in Australia, where he won the first set, and then Djokovic won the first set easily, and then Zverev had nice leads. He was up a break in the 3rd and 4th sets, and Djokovic came back both times and beat him. And I just feel like on the big pressure points that Djokovic performs better.
Yeah, he's more solid.
Yeah, right.
He always showed to be more solid, and again, this time it will be fresher, in my opinion, and so also mentally, probably with some advantage.
So your call, please. How many sets?
My call is Djokovic. Again in 4 sets, but without maybe too much struggle.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
We'll see. Why shouldn't we talk about ladies? Even if I just want to mention one first round that particularly intrigues me, because even if we have 10 Italian players in the draw, which is quite a number, Well, I'm curious to see what will happen with Lorenzo Musetti playing the Polish player Urcax, because Urcax has a great serve. Musetti has no experience at all on grass. You must know that since he was unable to, since he had to go through some exams, he was unable to play the tournaments which were in the 2 weeks leading to Wimbledon. So he couldn't go neither to Mallorca and before to Halle, Queens or Eastbourne. And what happened that in his local tennis club, they have a soccer field and they cut the grass in a way that looked like a little bit like a tennis court, a grass court. Of course, it was different. I mean, I can imagine how many holes and bad bounces there were. But the only way for him to practice was until he left on Wednesday to London and Wimbledon, was for 2 weeks while preparing his exam to practice on this strange soccer field.
Yeah. Yes.
And so I don't believe that he can be very well prepared. But I don't know much about Urcax, who has a very good serve, and so for sure he is dangerous. But who knows if in grass is so, because he's not very quick in movements like Berrettini or Zverev that we mentioned before. So I don't know. What do you think?
No, well, since
I
Miami,
just saw that in Wimbledon, Urcas played only twice. Once he lost in first round in 2018, and in 2019 lost in third round. But
well, since Miami, Ubaldo, where you had the great breakthrough, he hasn't played as well since then. I don't think he's as confident as he was back then. And so therefore, I think Musetti has a chance. I give Hurkacz an edge. I give him the edge, but I think Musetti is still dangerous. He's so talented that I think he'll probably adapt pretty well to the grass, and it could be quite close.
He also, Musetti has some sort of very wide movements, so he needs some time to play both his forehand. He always stays a little bit too much back when he's returning the serve. But for instance, he has a good serve enough, and he could take advantage of it. Maybe, I don't know.
Well,
anyway,
the serve, yeah, he'll need to serve well in that match. No doubt about it. That would be one of the keys.
Yeah. Okay, listen, let's talk about ladies. Should we? Sure. Because we have been already talking for 45 minutes already on men's. So
yeah,
let's okay, now we talking about ladies. Well, we have, I don't know if you agree or not, Barty and Serena Williams in the same half of the duel. And in my opinion, this is really the last train for Serena Williams. I don't see if she can do better at the US Open on hard court, where there are many more players who are able to play on hard court, while in grass, there are some players who really are unable almost to play on grass. So true that Serena has possibly the third round versus Kerber, and she had lost to Kerber one of the four finals after being pregnant, being mother. She lost four finals in 2 sets, but Kerber is not the same Kerber either.
Well, no, but she's starting to play a little better this past week. There's some encouragement for her, and I do think it's a match where she wouldn't put as much pressure on herself. She knows right now that people are writing her off, and they're expecting Serena to win. And certainly nobody expected Kerber in 2018 to beat Serena in that final. Going in, we all thought Serena was going to win.
Yeah.
And Kerber's also beaten her in Australian Open final too. So she's not too fearful of Serena. That'll be an interesting test, and it would be in the third round.
Correct.
Because Kerber's seated 25th. Yeah. I disagree with you slightly. I think that Serena will still have a shot at the US Open, not quite as good as here maybe, but when you look at her last 3 U.S. Opens, a couple of finals there against Osaka and Andreescu, and then semifinals last year against Azarenka, where she won the first set. So I think she's still a big threat even on the hard courts, but this should be her best chance for sure. And I don't know.
Even if if she beats Kerber, she has Coco Gauff.
That will be
so
fascinating.
Not an easy draw, to be honest. I would say that would be easier, probably the quarters of finals, playing maybe Svitolina or Pavlyuchenkova or Georgie. I don't believe Georgie can play.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. Those matches psychologically wouldn't be as tough for Serena. Coco, that would be fascinating because Coco has improved so much this year, and she's very good on all surfaces. And I think she had a problem with double faults. We talked about Zerev, but lately, again, there's been some good improvement from Gauff about not serving so many doubles. And that helps. That's helped her a lot. Her forehand is much better than it was too. As they say, she's shored up her forehand. So I feel like she's the kind of player that would go out on that court against Serena with great respect, but with no fear, no apprehension. So and the way she's been playing this year, going in, I don't give Serena a big edge. I only would give her a slight edge. And I think Serena would need one of her best serving days to get through that match.
Yeah. Anyway, to make predictions in the women's field, it has been a nightmare for me because honestly, I never expected what happened in Paris with Krejcikova playing against Pavlyuchenkova in the final and 4 semifinalists who had never made the semifinals before in a slam. And now Barty is seeded #1. And she's for sure a talented player and beautiful to watch, but we never know if she can finish a match or not. She has been injured most of the times, and as soon as she starts saying, I have to listen to my body, that's it. When she listens to her body, she stops, she quits.
Well, but she played a lot of good tennis prior to Roland Garros. She had a really good record week in and week out in the finals, winning tournaments. She really had a nice run.
In Rome, she did retire, saying, I feel I'm listening to my body. And then we thought...
She did. You're right.
And she did after she had won a game very convincingly, so that nobody was expecting her to quit. And then she was right, because she went to Roland Garros 3 weeks later, and she withdrew again.
Yes, it's true. But leading up to Rome, she was probably played too much, and through that period, her body seemed to be holding up all right, and she played a lot of really first-rate matches. If she's healthy,
it's a big if.
It's a big if, but I would give her a reasonable chance to win the tournament because the mentality is right. She's a complete professional out there, and she knows what she's doing, and she's well-rounded, and she's got that great backhand slice that will be very effective on the grass and an underrated serve. So I hope she's healthy. I'm trying to stay positive thinking about her here and hoping that we're going to see her now not worried about her body and able to play her way deep into this tournament. And I would love that. It would be a lot of fun to see her play either Coco or Serena, which conceivably could be a semifinal.
Yeah. Anyway, Barty will have after a few good easy match. She may have to play Joanna Conta.
But Ubaldo, just to bring back the word you just brought up, nightmare, trying to predict the women. At least we have maybe some idea of what might happen in Serena's half of the draw. Take a look at the other half of the draw. It's even harder to predict.
Oh, yeah.
You have Sabalenka as the #2 seed. Right now, I don't like the way she's playing, and I think she could lose early. And then you have...
but the only thing good for Sabalenka is that in her draw, there are she has first round against the qualifier, and then there are three more qualifiers.
Right.
They're all qualifiers, apart from Alexandrova, who is seeded #32.
It's true, but that's not always easy either, Ubaldo. She won't know as much about those players. But even if she gets through that, I mean, eventually she may have to play Sakari, who is the #15 seed, and then in the quarters, Swiatek would be her seed.
Swiatek or Muguruza, because don't forget Muguruza won Wimbledon once.
Yeah, she did, but she too has had some struggles lately after playing better earlier in the year. But either matchup would be tough for Sabalenka, either one.
Yeah.
And then eventually we have that top section there, the bottom half of the draw is Kenin, number 4 seed, against maybe Pliskova, the number 8 seed in the quarters. A lot of good players in that section though, like Pagula.
Kvitova won twice Wimbledon.
Yeah, and Kvitova is playing Sloane Stephens in the first round, which is a fascinating match because Sloane Stephens is resurgent right now. That'll be a very good match.
But Stephens on grass almost doesn't seem to be as good as on clay. Huh?
Her serve gets exposed, Ubaldo. She tends to just kind of throw her first serve in with no speed on it and gets away with it sometimes on slower surfaces. You're right. I agree with you that it might be the right surface for Kvitova to play her.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think we went through everything. I think. I don't
Ubaldo,
know.
would you say in the end, are we going to give, say, 8 to 10 women? I say there are 8 to 10 women that can win this tournament, frankly.
Yes, I would say I'm just guessing that I have more. I give more chances to the top half of the draw, to have a winner coming from the top half than from the lower half.
I agree with that, but I still don't totally trust it, the top half either, because we've had so much unpredictability in the women's game lately that we still can't say for sure. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out, and obviously all eyes will be on Serena. She wants that 24th major, but I think, Ubaldo, she puts too much pressure on herself these days. I think she cannot get history off of her mind. I think it's always in the back of her mind to win these majors. She knows she has limited time left and she wants those records. And I think that gets in her way sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I think Margaret Court is sleeping quite quietly. She's not so afraid to lose her record.
Right. No, maybe not. But I'm just saying it means a lot to Serena. I'm not criticizing her. It means so much to her, but it's some players I think I think Djokovic usually does a great job of blocking those things out of his mind and just going out and winning the titles. So Serena, I think she's conscious of years that were perhaps wasted in the middle, or not necessarily wasted, but where she had things going on in her life that made it difficult to play her best, injuries, all kinds of things were happening to her, illnesses. And now she feels good and she's a mother and she's going to have to get on with her life in her 40s. But at 39, she wants to make the most of these small whatever opportunities are left.
Yes. I don't know which other opportunities are left for me and you, Steve, because we may not be in Wimbledon this year, because you are not going to come for sure, and I am very doubtful, because to be honest, because of the pandemic, because of the quarantine, and even if in a way I would have more reasons to go than any other year, because I mean, we didn't say anything about Sinner, but I mean, with Berrettini, with Sonego, with Sinner also.
Well, Ubaldo, let's be honest. The Italian players, if you're not on site, their chances are slightly diminished. I think so. Their spirits are diminished and their chances are diminished.
No, maybe they think the opposite, because once I left Monte Carlo just before the semifinals, because I had planned a trip to India with my family, and Fognini had to play the next day to Nadal versus Nadal, and I left saying, "Oh, bad luck, I have to leave." But I mean, Fognini doesn't have many chances to play Nadal in Monte Carlo, and then Fognini won the tournament. So many readers of mine said, "Oh, Fognini has won because you weren't there." So now I don't want the story to repeat. You know, I wouldn't. I mean, I would be happy if Berrettini would win the tournament or any of the Italians without me but in the same time, I would be embarrassed.
No, well, I think they're better off with you there, Ubaldo, but it's been a great discussion as always. I've enjoyed it.
Okay, thanks a lot to my old friend, colleague, and Hall of Famer Steve Flink, and talk to you again in during the tournament. While maybe some big upset we never thought they were going to happen happened. Ciao, Steve. Ciao, ciao.
Oh, ciao. Thank you.